Grind City Media fans, welcome back into this year's 2024 NBA mock draft. Joining me to represent the Spurs is Noah Magaro-George. And Noah has been a friend of Grind City Media for a while now. So we're going to put him on the spot. The Spurs have 2 picks in the top 10. Let me set the scene, Noah, before I put you on the clock. The Spurs, of course, won the NBA draft last year. They drafted Wembanyama. He had a spectacular season. Yeah. He averaged 21 points, shot almost 50% from the field, 10.5 rebounds, 4 assists. I could go on and on and on. However, because this is such a young team, the Spurs did not have the most successful season in terms of wins and losses. In terms of growth, great season, but they were 22-60. Second worst record in the Western Conference. And now, like I said, they got 2 picks in the top 10 this year, and obviously expected to use those picks to kind of bolster their backcourt and give Victor a little bit of help, a little bit of some support. So that being said, I'm going to put Noah on the clock for the first of 2 picks for the Spurs.
Awesome. And with the 4th overall pick, the San Antonio Spurs are going to take Rob Dillingham.
Okay, this one does not surprise me, and I'm happy you chose this one because I want to chat about it. I have been going up and down on mock drafts and scouts for a lot of people, and Rob Dillingham is someone that I feel like people either love or hate. So he is a guard from Kentucky. He's about 6'3" and an absolute bucket, Noah, like a really good dynamic scorer. He can score from literally everywhere. He has incredible handles. Let's start with the positives. How does that fit into what the Spurs want to do moving forward?
Yeah, and San Antonio, they were one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the NBA last season. They didn't really have any advantage creators outside of a guy like Victor Wembanyama, but he needs help. They need someone who can handle the ball. They need someone who can create for others. They need someone with a little bit more gravity than a Trey Jones. And Trey Jones was awesome for the Spurs as that spot starter for most of the season, rather. And they just need to find an upgrade. So while Rob Dillingham, and we'll get into his, areas of improvement later, some of the concerns later, but I love that he's able to stretch the floor off the dribble all the way out to the 3-point line. Now, he's not the greatest finisher, but he's got that really electric first step that he's able to blow by his defender, kind of get some dribble penetration, collapse the defense, force help. And then he has a good enough vision, although he's not really a traditional point guard, more in the vein of a combo guard. He does have the vision to be able to find guys in the corner off of those live dribble skips. He's able to hit the roll man and the pick and roll. So I think just as someone who can do those things and also bring that in-between game where he's hitting the floaters, he's able to pull up from mid-range, stop on a dime, I think that's really huge for San Antonio. And I did for a minute think about Nikola Topic, but I think ultimately the Spurs need someone who can score from multiple levels and someone who doesn't necessarily need the ball to score. And I think that's also what separates Rob Dillingham, and he's a guy who can spot up. He knocked down over 44% of his spot up threes this season at Kentucky. And he's also a guy who knocked down over 40% of his movement threes off screens at Kentucky. And so if he's not going to have the ball in his hands and it's going to be in Victor's hands or Vassell's hands, it's nice to have that guy who can also score when he doesn't have the ball. So that's what I really love about Rob for San Antonio. We'll see if it ends up working out, if that's the pick that they ultimately make, but I think he makes the most sense for them here.
All right. So I like him, honestly. Like I like a good bucket getter. The biggest criticism with him is, I guess, there's defensive concerns, right? And so I look at someone like Dillingham, who's this absolute bucket who would bolster the offense for this Spurs team, if that's the pick that they go with. On the defensive end, I don't know. Like, okay, let's say he goes on a different team. A defensive concern could be a real concern. When you've got Wemby behind you, though, like you're able to get away with a little bit more, right?
Absolutely. And that's kind of the argument that I've been making. So this isn't the first mock draft that I've done. This isn't the first time I've looked into Rob Dillingham and all the other prospects in this draft. And I think when you have someone like Wembanyama, you have some give and take. Like anytime you're constructing a roster, you're not going to have a perfect roster. You're going to build for what you have. And when you have Victor Wembanyama, a guy who led the league in blocks per game, a guy who can step out on the perimeter a little bit, a guy who can switch, a guy who erases mistakes from others, it gives you some leeway. And I know that people probably aren't necessarily in love with Rob Dillingham defensively because he was sort of a turnstile. He's not very big. Despite being 6'3", he doesn't have a plus wingspan. He's got a 6'3" wingspan. He's very skinny. He has a very similar frame to a guy like Bones Highland, who's also not really known for his defense. The effort wasn't always there. There's some bad habits like the reach arounds, not trying to recover when he's beat off the dribble. Like there are things that make you go, "Ooh, is this the right guy?" But ultimately, again, it's about Victor Wembanyama, what he can do. And people may not agree with me here, but I think point guard is probably the least important defensive position. I mean, you look, even the best point guard defenders, the guys who are like 6'2", 6'1", 6'3", they're not making that much of an impact because they don't have that much size to begin with. So I think as long as he can put the effort forward, and a guy like Greg Popovich is asking for that, attention to detail, or you're not getting on the court, I think they're fine. I think they'll be fine. They'll live with that. There's going to be give and take no matter how you construct a roster. And I'm fine with them taking a swing on Rob Dillingham, even though he's a negative defender coming into the league from day one, probably.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly said. I don't think anyone's going to say that better than that. I think that'd be a good fit. My last question to you is, obviously that's a good fit. Do you see, and I'm talking generally now for 4 and 8 for the Spurs, do you see them going for fit because they have Wemby and they know what they're building around, rather than just going like best available? Because best available for ours, like we've got, I don't know, Klingon, but like you don't need another center. So like, do you see fit more important this year specifically because you already got Wemby?
To some degree, and I know that's sort of a cop-out answer, and I think it all depends on how you see your big board. Like for my big board, I have Rob Dillingham as 3. So
Mhm.
for me, the Spurs win here because it's the 4th pick and they're getting the
Good
third
point.
best player in the draft. But I think to a degree you go for fit because Wembanyama has talked about, hey, like I'm willing to be patient. I understand we're not going to win a championship year 1, year 2, year 3 probably, but he also has made it clear that he wants to start making progress towards winning sooner than later. And
Hmm.
so I think for the Spurs, rather than going for, big upside swings with both picks, I think you're probably going to see them, if they do go for upside, at least it's going to be something along the lines where the fit makes sense, or they may go upside 1 pick, and then the 2nd pick, it's more, okay, can we get an immediate contributor later, like a Dalton Connect or somebody in that vein. But yeah, I just generally I see the Spurs going away where they get a little bit of both worlds, where they get the upside and maybe they get the, day one contributor. But we'll see. This class is very strange. I know not a lot of people don't really like it that much. I'm kind of in that boat as well. But I think the Spurs at the end of the day, it's going to be hard for them to lose in this draft. Like there's a lot of winning combinations for them at 4 and 8.
All right. I like Dillingham. I like that pick. Thank you, Noah. We will talk to you again in, I guess, a couple days, because the Spurs have the number 8 pick too. So we'll chat soon. I appreciate you so very much. And yeah, I guess we're less than a month away. So this is exciting. We'll see you in a couple days though.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I'm looking forward to coming back.